So yesterday we talked about the rumor that have been going around about PlayStation and Take-Two and how it's a pretty absurd rumor. The chances that this is going to happen are slim to none, in my opinion. And I was looking at their cash on hand that ended December 31st, 2022. They had about 11 billion. Now we have some more information that it is actually less than that, which completely, in my mind, really gets rid of the rumor, really destroys the rumor that they would go out and be able to even come close to purchasing Take-Two. But first of all, there was this big news about Take-Two where they made some cost reductions and some layoffs. And specifically, they say, we've embarked on a company-wide cost reduction program that will optimize our expense structure while also positioning us to deliver on our anticipated growth trajectory. We expect to achieve savings in excess of 50 million as a result of this initiative. And they go on and say, after a comprehensive review, we now believe that we can deliver over 50 million of annual savings, which we will begin to execute on this quarter. Opportunities include personnel, processes, infrastructure, and other areas, particularly in publishing and corporate functions. So there's going to be layoffs of people there. They're going to make some changes. They're going to be saving a lot of money. But Take-Two, currently, we look at it and their market cap is at 19.71 billion. So it's still nowhere. It's nowhere near the realm of where Sony would be able to afford based on their cash on hand if it was still at that $11 billion. But then we got this report that has been going around, which again, I think completely destroys the rumor. It says Sony has about $5 billion left for acquisition before 2024. And what should it buy? So speculation about Sony PlayStation acquisitions are making rounds once again, as it has emerged that the company has a little over $5 billion left for acquisitions until 2024. And the Sony group had paid 2 trillion yen for the purpose back in 2020 to be spent over 3 years. So 5 billion. They're not going to be able to get Take-Two. But I think what the bigger question is in regards to all of this type of stuff when it comes to Take-Two is what is going to be the response of PlayStation if the Activision Blizzard deal does go through? Are they going to be going out and taking that 5 billion and trying to spend it on buying some publishers, one bigger publisher or a bunch of smaller different publishers? What are they going to do with their own first party stuff? Are they going to eventually just start putting their own first party games into PlayStation Plus day one or near to day one, maybe a month after it's released, something like that, into the premium tier of PlayStation Plus? I've said multiple times on this channel, I think that at some point PlayStation is going to have to offer their first party games into their service at release date, or at very least near release date, if they're going to want to continue to be able to compete with Xbox Game Pass and that ecosystem, and especially if the Activision Blizzard acquisition does go through, it does pass, they're going to have so much more to compete against on top of having to pay Xbox to build up their ecosystem, to build up Game Pass, to get more investment into it, to be able to spend more money on acquiring third parties to put their games into Game Pass and all that type of stuff, because they're going to be keeping Call of Duty on their platform, and all the money they make from that, they're giving a percentage over to Xbox. So I think there are going to be moves that are going to have to be made by PlayStation, and I'm sure they're sitting in a boardroom right now and they're planning it out, probably already in talks with some of those moves that are going to happen. But none of this, I think, is going to be announced or revealed until after the Activision Blizzard stuff has been settled, whether that means the deal has been blocked or the deal goes through. I think that's the most interesting talking point out of all of these rumors that are clearly, I think, fake rumors, especially from the account that it is coming from. There's a good tweet here highlighting what this guy has said multiple times about acquisitions. It's honestly just a random dude on Twitter who says random rumors without any sources, without anything to back it up in terms of acquisitions, and it gets traction. Because that's what the goal is, to put something crazy out there so people talk about it. I'm talking about it now, but here is the guy on Twitter, Raytheon. This is one of his tweets. So what I've heard by a few actually is that Sony is looking to acquire the entire Oculus brand for 4.6 billion. Included in that are the studios Ready at Dawn, Sanzaro Games, and Beat Games. If no announcement is made by the end of October, the deal has fallen through. There was no announcement, obviously. Have it on extremely good word that if Microsoft acquires Activision Blizzard, Sony is going after Take-Two Interactive to counter it. 3 of my trusted and almost always correct sources confirmed that to me. Again, I don't believe that for a second. At the end of the day, I think Sony will acquire by 2030 Square Enix, Capcom, Konami, Embracer, Crytek, Sega, and Ubisoft. Remember 2 things. The great European acquisition war is about to begin and Sony's at the forefront. Also, 2030 would include 2 more budget additions. Now, this one's just absolutely absurd, especially by 2030. It's going to be a huge change in the gaming industry, especially with the Activision Blizzard acquisition going to Xbox. Like, Sony is going to have great competition. And I think that their overall market share in many different regions is going to slowly get reduced, and it's going to go over to Xbox. And I'm not saying that means Sony is going to in any way be in trouble. They're still going to be extremely powerful. They're still going to be a market leader in many different ways, but there's going to be way more competition in parts of the world where Xbox isn't as popular right now. I think in Asia, I think in Europe, but in North America is where their biggest fight is going to come, where I think at some point Xbox is going to surpass PlayStation just overall because of how good of the services that they are providing, and that they're already highly competitive with PlayStation in North America. So this deal here, it's like Sony's definitely not going to be able to afford to acquire all the stuff by 2030. It just makes absolutely no sense. Then you see this one. The only way I can see Sony countering Bethesda and Activision Blizzard is to merge with Nintendo. No other publisher would be able to do as much damage as them. Probably the most outlandish claim of them all. So people are talking about this, though. That's why it is, I'm making a video about it, and that's why it is kind of valid right now within the gaming news, because we even had Jason Schreier take screenshots of this guy and talk about how he is surprised at how much of the gaming media has actually picked this stuff up. Which to me, if you're a big video game website, if you're a big gaming media, you're not just a guy like me on YouTube, independent, literally just looks at the gaming news and provides opinions and makes sure that you guys know all the stuff is rumors. Still talking about that is showing that right now, I guess for the last couple of days, the news has been dead. But at the same time, this guy's putting out just outlandish tweets, and the big gaming sites are actually talking about this Take-Two rumor, which I don't think makes any sense at all. But we'll leave that there. And the next thing I want to talk about is the Xbox Series S. I mean, the Xbox Series S, we're going to hear about this. We're going to see this till the end of this generation. Every single time there's any problems with a game, you're going to have people coming out and saying it is the fault the Xbox Series S. It was a bad decision by Xbox. It is holding back this generation of gaming. And Digital Foundry came out with their thoughts on Baldur's Gate 3 and the Xbox Series S. So they had it on their DF Direct Weekly number 101. And in the podcast, they talk about, again, Baldur's Gate 3, the Xbox Series S. Here's what they say. They are working on an Xbox version of Baldur's Gate 3. It's not officially announced as coming out, but it sounds like it is in production. The current reason they haven't announced it seems to boil down to, based on the statement, they can't get the split screen working on the Xbox Series S. This is the first time we've heard something specifically related to a gameplay feature that is not working well on the Series S. And then John Lindemann actually responded to that statement and says, I feel like in cases like this, it should be acceptable to release a version of Xbox Series X with that feature, split screen, and to have that feature behind on the Series S. I'd rather see the Series X be properly utilized, or at least get the game at all, than to just skip the console because they can't get this feature running acceptably on a different machine. And specifically, they did actually say this. The Digital Foundry did not make that up. There was this response here to IGN from Larian Studios. They say, we've run into some technical issues in developing the Xbox port that have stopped us feeling 100% confident in announcing it until we're certain we found the right solution. Specifically, we've been unable to get split screen co-op to work to the same standard on both the Xbox Series X and S, which is a requirement for us to ship. So this calls into question, are all those complaints, are all the people saying that the Series S was holding back this generation, were they correct? And I personally don't think they are correct. I definitely think this is, again, on the developer because of the simple fact that this game's requirements for PC are far less than the Xbox Series S's requirements. So they should be able to get it done onto the Xbox Series S. And to be completely honest, Baldur's Gate 3 is a top-down game. Graphically, it looks good, but it doesn't seem like it is that impressive. It doesn't seem like stuff that we've seen run very good on the Xbox Series S comparatively. So if they're not able to get this to run on split screen, it is probably something to do with the development kit that they just haven't been able to fully realize and utilize all the features within there to get it running properly. Now, specifically too, which I think has a lot of people confused, is just you look at the specs of the Xbox Series S versus the minimum requirements for this game on PC. And pretty much anytime people have said the Series S is holding back gaming is holding back these games. You go look at the minimum specs for the game coming out on PC, and they are overall worse than what the Xbox Series S is providing. So it's very, very confusing. I mean, you look at these stuff here, you got the 10 gigabytes of RAM, the 8 Zen 2 cores at 3.6. You have a custom AMD Radeon GPU with 4 teraflops. Now we look at Baldur's Gate 3, and the minimum specs here for PC, a GTX 970, which is about the 4 teraflops that the Series S offers, 8 gigabytes of RAM, which is less, and then the processor here, an i5 4690 or AMD 8250. And what this stuff doesn't have, that the Series S does have, is that RDNA 2 technology, the AI, machine learning, the stuff that should be able to alleviate a lot of the issues for games that require just higher power, like what the Xbox Series X has. So that's what I think is confusing a lot of people, which is why I always go back to, it has to be something with the development, it has to be something with the developers. They're not able to fully utilize all the features available with the Xbox Series S. And we've seen previously this generation games that look amazing, run at 60 frames per second on the Series S. This isn't every single game coming up, but there are issues, and they are clearly stating it is because of the split screen co-op, which also makes you go back and think about split screen co-op in general, how difficult it is for some of these developers to get it to run properly across all of the platforms. I mean, even Halo Infinite got rid of split screen co-op, which I think was a bad move, but they got rid of it, and I'm guessing it's because it was harder to optimize overall across all the generations, including going all the way back to the Xbox One. But we'll see what happens. I still think this game should release on Xbox on time, as they said that it is in active development, no matter what some people out there have said. It's been debunked. The developers came out, they said the game is in active development. They're having some issues, and they're going to announce the official release date, which should be the same time as PS5, when they are confident that the version will be ready. But I'm going to leave the video there, guys. Let me know what you think about all of this type of stuff, the Take-Two stuff, the Series S again back in the headlines, and Digital Foundry's take about potentially shipping games on the Series X and Series S with different features. If you enjoyed this video, hit that thumbs up. If you're new, hit that subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.